Hey, Matt,
Yo,
what's going on?
just flashing in here at the last minute. I was having lunch with my grandchildren and
Oh, no,
I got caught up in some pinball games.
that's always a good thing, man.
Yes, you didn't have anything to show, right?
So I got I found the link. Mike had it.
Okay, good.
I was going to bring up your 12-month forecast, but you blocked out the back part of it.
Yeah, I kind of been advised by my subscribers that I was giving away too much on the show. That it kind of was giving away some of their edge.
Okay. What did you want to
Yeah.
show then on the
I
thing?
think one of the things that's kind of that I like to look at is having the confidence to do something in the future and the forecast really you can look back and you get the confidence from seeing how it's performed in the past, and what you see in the past right now is probably as bad as it's been ever, and it's just from the disruptions of you can't the disruptions are the thing that makes the FTPs get off. It's when people behave differently and they out of the ordinary. So we've had some little some more deviation in the last couple of years, but we're getting back on track. But
No doubt
um,
when you have the outliers. Well, let's introduce. We'll kick it off, Matt. Everybody, welcome to lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Lehman, Lehman's Lumber Guide, Ashley Buckle, Materials Exchange. Um, so, Matt, you did the show with Mike last week. We'll get this thing fired back up. Just to talk a little bit about market update. It's been I was reading your replace the worn out shoes part of your scouting report, and it's really true. Like, here's what everybody wants to talk about right now, Matt. Where's my late shipments? Why haven't you got the trucks off the dock yet? Hey, there was some of my wood had a little had some mold on it and so forth. And I'm talking to a bunch of other people. Everybody's dealing with these little issues right now, and that's generally the sign that people aren't buying a lot of lumber, and they're following up on little things that they're pushing paper around the desk and not actually buying lumber. Does that make sense?
yeah, and to further confirm that for you, I've heard multiple conversations this week from people that I've been advising to get covered through the late May to say, well, I feel very comfortable with my inventory right now because I got a good 30 days, and they realize that 30 days puts you in the middle of April. That's just the beginning of spring. You're begging for trouble to put yourself in a spot where you need to buy the second between the middle of April and the middle of May. That's you pretty much guaranteed you're going to be at a high water mark during those 4 weeks right there. So I'd suggest strongly getting covered beyond that.
Well, you had a good point on here. Reading this, it says uh, March, April, May are higher lumber consumption months, right? And I think that's a good point that everybody has to think about. But it seems to be there's not as much fear to build inventory right now, right? And I think that goes back to what you were originally saying here is everybody has to get beyond the fear of what they actually have in front of them and what makes sense. I mean, on the show yesterday, we were talking about cost of production, et cetera. And, we're arguably through that on Western spruce right now. And, pine, I think we're still above production costs. We're right at them with European. So we're kind of at this inflection point where you're starting to limit your downside risk as far as price wise goes. Not saying you can always go lower, but there's
Yeah,
probably getting to be some,
we did that. We did that in what was it, November when the Canadian mill said 550 was break even and they weren't going to go below that. Next thing you know, where the low water mark was 275, and now we're hearing it about West Fraser for example saying if they have to go to 340 again, they're going to be shutting the mills down. Well,
well,
they didn't do it last time, so I'd be
yeah, you
wary.
got to be like Riley had a good point. All you have to do is, how do you know when they're below the cost production? All you have to do is look at their losses on their public reports, right? But again, your point
Yeah.
is right on. mills can run for a long frickin' time at a loss, you know, and
And they've been doing it for, actually, we've watched them do it for 40 years. I
yeah,
mean, I've never seen a curtailment, never. There was enough to jerk the market and make it turn it into a bull market. Never.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. And then we had, so let's go back through it. So Southern Pine, what are you seeing out there on the Southern Pine side of things, Matt?
It's better and probably better than everybody else is better, but it's not screaming by any stretch. It's
Yeah,
it may be a $5 to $10 kind of bump on the market. 2x12s are still the hottest thing going, and that's just because it's like 5% of production. There's just not a lot of it made. So
I
it's
love your comment here on Canadian SPF. Boxes are pursuing pro builder is not new. HD's model and Lowe's has been aggressively in pursuit for 3 years. CN voted to strike, and buyers are skeptical of spring sales surge. The industry is trading back to back, no doubt. I mean that it's you know when you see the same inquiry from 5 different people in the same place that everybody's trying to track down the same type of business because there's not a lot out there right now. That makes sense.
one guy was telling me at a buying group. He said he got 20 different wholesale offerings of wood on the port on Monday morning. Came in 20 different people, different companies. I was surprised that there were that many people handling Euro wood anyway. I would have never thought there's that many people that actively were doing it. But
yeah, no, good question. That brings us to the next thing, Euro lumber. Talking to some of the Euro people, so some smaller people probably are getting a little rattled by these prices. But from what I'm hearing is the big Euro players are still going to be coming over here because
they need the volume.
They need the volume. And if you think about it, we were sizing this up yesterday. So 2x4 16s, European 2x4 16s, 2 and better. We can all agree pretty nice looking product. Are trading around $450 right now, maybe under that. So $450, you have about $150 rail to Florida out of the West. So that brings you to a 300 Canadian equivalent mill on where Euro is trading, and it shows you the value of why people put it over there. Because think about that, it's a 300 mil on a 2 and better product.
And the other thing is kind of, I think, is very important about that is the Europeans have to know that 300 is a number that the Canadian mills are not going to go to. They're not going to go there and stay there. But that's the number that they keep throwing at. Like, if you want to play, the Europeans are saying, if you want to play, this is the number you got to play at, because they don't need to be $100 cheaper to get an order. It's almost like they're trying to drive themselves into a market share seat.
Yeah, and look at, I think, it's a logistical game at that point, because if you look where BC is compared to the East Coast, and you look at what it costs the Europeans to bring it over, I think what some experts were telling me, the break even is somewhere around $450 for the real good priced mills, and I'm talking on a whole production thing.
From Canada.
From Europe to coming over to the port, what they have to get, what the Europeans need to get to drop it on the East Coast. $450, and I've had guys tell me, and I know Greg's had some guys tell him that's not true. It's $600. Well, people are bringing it over and dropping it on the ground here at $400 and some, and selling it in the $450s, right? So
selling it $100 cheaper than they need to.
Yeah, I mean, but they're doing it, right? So I guess the whole point is that's something that we need to get a hold of. OSB flat. I've had a hard time getting a hold of OSB. That little bump the last few weeks, Matt. Where are you seeing that at?
Well, as people are talking about a little bump and things are getting better, but then prices just aren't changing. They're just kind of level where they are. The mills are taking the opportunity to extend a little order file or get some business, but I don't think they're extending order files, but the prices are just kind of hanging in there. But it seems like there's enough activity going on to keep mills from having to lower prices, but it's difficult to get them up too.
Sure. So what are your users telling you and your partners out there, Matt, about how they're going to build inventory for for Q2. Are they looking at that? Do they have good vision of what's
I think
going on?
the people that are blindly letting me lead them to the slaughter are probably covered or covering through May, right the end of May right now. And I think that's probably the long end of where everybody is. I think being out maybe 6 weeks is feeling almost a little bold. I don't know many people that are sitting on 8 weeks or 12 weeks of inventory that's unsold. Most everybody has a lot of inventory. It's mostly sold, so they don't have a lot of. They're not speculatively heavy long.
So I had 3 items that I kind of wanted to talk about here. I was reading an article last week about housing and how lumber's coming off in price. And somebody in the article said, and I actually replied to it in the article, that they're not seeing the same fall in price at the retail level that they're hearing about the wholesale level. And I find that a little hard to believe because I'm seeing it at the retail level where I see. So I have to get a little bit maybe a little bit better information on that. But they also said they hadn't seen a lot of the other items fall. What about the other items involved in housing? What are your users telling you outside of lumber? Are they starting to see any pullback, or is that still pretty?
No, it's still price increases announced for the earlier part of this year. So I don't see any of that coming off. But I was listening to a podcast by guys that said that the builders have gotten enough back from lumber that they got enough so they could make housing affordable just off of what the give back on lumber's been from the high water mark. But the thing about the builders being able to see the prices that the retailers, dealers, pro yards seeing the same prices that they're getting from mills passing on to the builders. You got to realize that if you look at what's happened in the market in the last 6 weeks, where it was up 100, down 100.
Yeah.
What of that did you get? I mean, nobody ended up with with a big inventory at the bottom. Nobody ended up with a big inventory at the top or at the bottom. It happened so quickly, so you just got to get that out of you carve a place out in the middle. It's about where we are right now, back in the 4 to 450 kind of range is where we're kind of averaging. So it's just we're kind of going. The price that you see are averages of like 6 weeks worth of activity, not necessarily the spikes.
Yeah, that's a great point. From what we see on the wholesale level or the mill level, that was a big move a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
but
and we talk about it on a daily basis, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
and that's not how inventories at a pro yard move.
So the other interesting thing that I've been seeing that's really germane to our industry, logistics, right? So I read a couple over the last few weeks how there's pressure on some of the trucking companies, right? Especially the small, mid-sized ones, because rates have dropped so significant. It's pretty inexpensive to ship things around the country. A lot different conversation than you and I were having 2 years ago. Remember that?
Yeah, it's all the same. It's directly proportional to what's going on and everything else. We're kind of over the COVID splurge of getting too much inventory, getting oversupplied, and now I think that's part of what's going on in the economy too. Is we're just trying to sell off this extra inventory. So it's not that the ability to supply is not there. It's just that it's like I got a sticky note right on the side of my computer. It says COVID hangover, and I've had it here for about a month, and just to remind myself that we're coming off of something that was extremely abnormal, and a lot of people keep comparing back to what it was like in 2019, and you kind of got to take out the cause and effect of what COVID did to the entire world, and what our motive was for why we did that. In my opinion, it was just a sudden fear of dying. A panic of losing everything. So say, well, if people are breathing on me and I'm going to die, then I'm going to go do something to get my money's worth before I punch out. And now we're kind of settled back in reality that like it's okay if you get coughed on, you're not going to die, or somebody shakes his hand and somebody else is right after yours. And so I think we're just kind of stepping back into reality, and 40% gain in housing prices in 2 years is just too much. I mean, we need to easily give back 10 or 15% of that just to just in kindness.
So it's crazy. I was a big, in my mind, I thought we would have some give back in pricing, and I think we certainly are in some places, but we're in a real strange spot in housing right now. Existing homes inventory is really low. Obviously, the inventory of existing homes is all of them, but the ones that people are actually selling are very small because are very limited because not a lot of people want to move at low interest rates. We talk about this all
Well,
the
and the
time.
other thing too is a lot of people don't feel like they have to move again. You got so much work from home opportunity, and people have already we've already had the flight to the suburbs from the metro cities. So there's nothing else. There's no big panic thing to happen. It's just everybody settled down. So, well, I made the move. I'm out of the city. I'm in the suburbs. My kids are happy. My wife's happy. I'm happy working from home. Everything's cool. And plus, I got 2.75% interest rate. Give me a reason to move.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the new home construction, these builders are still, you can see what their margins are. They're reporting on them still pretty decent. And they have the ability to actually do some of these buy downs and do this fancy, give people fancy incentives to, let's face it, make the payment cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, are we going to see much of a pullback in pricing on houses?
Well, here's another thing I told you so from about 4 years ago was 40-year interest rates, 40-year mortgages. Fannie Mae's now got a 40-year mortgage on the table, so you start out another 25% of the length of time or 30% of time for your mortgage term, and you can cut the price in a third, and people are going to qualify. That'll support housing prices, and just get people to commit. I heard also of 8-year car loans this week. There were just to get payments lower. So you got to be concerned with getting upside down in your equity once you start taking those kind of long-term looks. But
yeah, no doubt. What else? So what else do you have over at Layman's Lumber Guide going on this week? Any more events that you're holding with any of your users?
Well, the next big round table is going to be the last Friday of the month. I think that's the 28th or something like that, whatever that is. So that's been pretty informative. We've got another group. We're starting a class of Inner Circle. We're thinking about probably in April, but we're just kind of working on the format of that a little bit. But not a whole lot. Just trying to keep up with the market for now.
Great. Are you going to travel up to any of these events going on, like Montreal in April, or any
I've
of those
never been
locations?
to Montreal, but I just for some reason it hasn't been a market that I've been really active in. But I am now, so I probably should go to that. That's the end of the month too, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's in April, I believe. Yeah, and it's worth it from the standpoint, I think, because it's everybody in the market. It used to just be kind of an Eastern Canadian event, but now it's North American and European. Everybody shows up at it. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good venue to go to. And I think NALA is having one of their leadership ones. Is that this week, or was that going on down in Palm Springs or something?
Something was happening. I'm not sure what it was. There's been a Do It Best and LMC of LBM Advantage. Have both had shows the last couple winter buying shows, and the reports coming back where it was kind of a little bit disappointing that he get as much bought as they sold as they thought they were going to. But I don't think they went down there with a lot of stuff they had to sell. They just were trying to.
So how does that work? They go to these mills and they say, "Hey, we're having our show. You got to give us a whole bunch of lumber to bring down there and to sell people at a discount to what you're selling everybody else," or how does that work?
No, they go. It's my understanding they go down there, and the enticement is from the buyers to rebates that they get on product. How much did they buy? The year-end rebates, or if you buy so much, you get registered for a Harley or a shotgun or something like that, or a trip to Bermuda.
That's cool. Okay.
And there's different incentives. It's not necessarily have to do with some of it. Maybe some of these guys may have taken a position on OSB, for example, and come down there with 100 trucks or something. They got a little bit of a discount on just because they bought some volume. But for the most part, in my opinion, the ones that happened this late in the year missed the best buying opportunities. It just happens this year. That's not really the case because steel prices are still very good. But I kind of think that you got, when you hear reports like that from the buying shows that were not really overly aggressive, it just kind of makes you reconfirm the long-term outlook for the market is not particularly rosy for the second half of the year, despite a little bit of housing numbers, and the Fed just keeps swinging back and forth like a yo-yo. Like rates are going to be, we're softening, we're easing, we're tightening, we're panic tightening, and it's just like all over the place. Nobody knows what to expect. So.
Yeah, Matt, I sent you a note about an hour ago. I think, I said, I think what we're going to get into is a market like you and I had the first 30 years of our careers, right? Where it's the volatility isn't like what we've seen in the past 3 years. There still is volatility, but if you think about it, some of these markets in the late 80s, early 90s, 2000, you had, and I think Riley used to always tell me this, and he's probably pretty real. You always have one market every year where you can make decent money and you got good volatility.
You don't know what it is till the year's over, though.
Well, there's generally one good move, and that's why you got to keep positioned all the time and treading water during that time to catch that one or maybe two moves sometimes, right?
Yeah,
and the whole market used to move $135 a thousand peak to trough the whole year. We had some of those moves in a day or two the last few years. So
I was talking to a guy yesterday, as a broker. He said, "Man, we missed those days of 30 and 40 and $100 a thousand cars from the last couple of years." And he said they've got a problem with people that they've hired over the last 2 years, thinking that that's what the lumber business was like, and now they're having to sell cars with $4 or $5 in them, and say that you're going to make $25 off of this car, $50 off of this car, rather than the 3,000 last year.
Mentally, it's hard getting your head around that, right? And it's so true. But that could be where we're at again. Now, I think with the speed of which things move nowadays, maybe there'll be a little bit more volatility. Earl Heath said, tuning in here from West Coast Canada. Great stuff as always. Thanks, guys.
I'd be interested to hear if anybody's got a varying inventory position that's greater than 30 days.
Let's see.
I got a poll up on LinkedIn that's got a couple of, like, are you overbought or underbought, and are your sales better in March? Are they starting out better in March than they ended in February? And about half the people said 40% of the people said it's about the same, and it was mixed kind of up and down. So really kind of inconclusive as far as what sales are like, and also with inventory. Most everybody said about 40% of the people said they were heavier than they were 2 months ago, which they should be. So that kind of makes sense.
Ellen Taylor was saying 6 to 7 weeks here. Inventory.
It's a good spot.
Days. Yeah, I think that is a pretty good spot. And I think that's general. Would you say that's generally where most of the people that are in your group are at about, Matt?
I'd say no, most of them are not, even though they've been advised to be.
Okay.
It's kind of back to that human behavior kind of thing. You still got to, when you look at a long-term chart of what's happened over the last couple of years, from week number 16, week number 20, down all the way through the end of the summer, it's just a roller coaster slide down. But we started from $500. We didn't start from $300. So there was a lot more air to come out of it then than there is now. So we could conceivably see a market that just goes sideways flat for 4 months.
That doesn't sound real exciting, right?
No, it doesn't at all. I get depressed thinking about that. But
yeah, it's crazy. But like my dad used to say, I don't care if the price is at 1,000 or at 500. He goes, as long as it just stays there and doesn't bounce around, I'm happy.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Matt. Well, appreciate everything today. As always, if anybody wants to sign up for Layman's Lumber Guide, Matt, you can send Matt an email, and he'll get you on the report. And as always, I think he makes you take it for free for the first one.
You got to test drive it before you buy it.
All right, folks. Well, Matt, thanks for the time today. We'll look forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good day.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.